This is a clouds weather alert.
Good late Thursday or late Friday, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, coming on the air as we show you those current temperatures across the region. Toward about 1:30 in the morning, you do see there mid 70s in a lot of areas. 68 out toward Blakely and southwestern Georgia. Some scattered showers, by the way, off toward the coastal waters, but they're not too big of a deal. But the reason we're in alert mode is because of what we're looking ahead to. Unfortunately, for later next week, there is some potential in the tropics here of a U.S. landfall. Now, as I say that, me going into alert mode does not mean that we're going to have a local impact here. It just means that I am feeling fairly confident that we're going to have some type of U.S. tropical cyclone landfall that could be pretty significant late next week here. So, that means anywhere in the southeast really needs to be paying attention. And this could, the threat could even stretch into toward later on the following weekend. So, what I mean by that is not just, Saturday, which is the end of next week, technically. I mean, even into Sunday, there, as we're starting to get, closer toward October. The 29th is the Sunday that I'm talking about. But you kind of get the idea here as we're looking at things. So, we're gonna have to pay attention here because a lot of the models have been showing higher end potential with it. Doesn't mean again it's headed toward North Florida, South Georgia, but it could, and we have to just be ready for that possibility here. So I'm gonna go and give you that advanced heads up. And there's all sorts of possibilities, on the table in terms of how strong this could be. It hadn't formed yet, so that's the kind of storyline with it. I mean, there's just, all sorts of different possibilities. Could be a, relatively weak storm as we're kind of looking at things, as we're kind of giving you the very latest, or it could be a very serious, large and severe a hurricane. That's definitely a possibility. So just be prepared for all the different potential, again, a lot of areas, that are watching this, I'm talking about really the southeast just needs to watch. I mean, they're not going to get impacted. The Gulf Coast really is, to narrow it down a little bit further. A lot of folks won't get the impact, but, areas in and near, at least in the vicinity of the Gulf Coast, other folks will probably get that impact. So it's just kind of a tricky situation there. And we just have to remain vigilant as we're kind of watching things here in the tropics. So the official outlook, the early Friday update in from the Hurricane Center in Miami. I know we have two other systems out there. Not too concerned about those. Those low chances for development with those two. But as we look further off toward the west here, it's still very uncertain. But a impactful system here, an impactful system could develop from a Central American gyre here. A CAG is what it's called, the abbreviation for that in meteorology. And that maybe tracks toward the southeast later next week. So again, I generally don't, with a 40% chance, I'd be going to alert mode, but there's just higher in possibilities of danger on the table here. But there's that risk that we just need to go and get folks notified about here. Just to be thinking about what to do, in case something does come in toward their area here. I know the next names here on the list, depending on how things get named. I know Helene would be next up, and then Isaac. So again, that kind of just gives you an idea of where we're at with things. I know could have easily had Helene toward the Carolinas. Didn't quite meet the criteria earlier this week. I know it could end up getting one of those areas out there to the east to be Helene. I know we're looking at some remnants of Gordon and the like out that way as we kind of get there. But, the dreaded I name over the years, we've had so many bad I name hurricanes impact Florida. So, that kind of just catches you, you know, uh, by, alert per se. When you hear an I name potentially evolving, and being an issue, doesn't mean, really anything in some ways, but we've had Irma and Dahlia and Ivan and Ian toward Florida over the years with impacts. So again, that time of year is, the I name. I mean, that gets you to, let's see here, that's about the ninth name on the list, and that means that, that's about the time of year when you could have the pattern setting up just right for, the more volatile storms, to develop, and the steering patterns to evolve in a favorable method toward Florida. So, gotta pay attention. Some preparedness considerations if needed. Just these are in general. You want to secure property and decide whether evacuation is necessary once we see something develop. Of course, right now you're just thinking about really having a hurricane hit up to date, but uh, just think about different scenarios right now, and think about how storm surge could affect you if you're along the Gulf Coast based on all sorts of different scenarios. I mean, there's all sorts of different places. I mean, you have Tampa Bay, you have Mobile Bay. Just think about all the different areas about how a storm surge could affect your specific zone there. A basic disaster supplies kit includes a water, non-perishable food, battery-powered or hand-crank radio, no other radio, flashlight, and first aid kit. And it's also important to have cash and gas on hand. I know if you have a scenario where the internet's not working, for instance, a business might only be able to take cash, and then gas, well, that's important to have for generators, which you gotta, of course, be very careful with. But also, if you want to try to get to an area, maybe, let's say, you just don't want to be without power for so long and you want to get to another area there after the storm's over, because it's looking like power could be out for a week. Well, you gotta have gas to get there, and there could be long lines after the storm if you don't get that ahead of time. The full list there's ready.gov/kit. If we have a storm, you want to target those devices as power outages would be possible. I mean, the degree of which, there's all sorts of ranges of possibilities. I mean, I'm not going to say the direct model outputs here. We just don't have enough. And honestly, the reason I decided to go into alert mode did deal with the ensemble run of the GFS, even though it was showing some things that were looking, slightly less severe in terms of maybe impact on the main run. The ensemble run, so in different variations of potential, were showing, concern, New Orleans, but then Florida as well, and areas in between. So I just had enough concern that somebody's probably going to have some serious impact, because I feel like this scenario would likely evolve on us here and be problematic. So somebody's probably going to have issues here, or need to charge the devices up as power outages will be possible from some type of system later next week. You'll want to be, if there's tornadic weather, be ready to move to an interior room in a tornadic situation. And then after a storm moves through, of course, stand away from power lines, and generator safety is critical. And make sure your trading intersections is four-way stops. You got to be really careful because, if the power is out, and then you're in a situation here where the traffic lights are out, then that's when you would treat that as a four-way stop. So just very important to keep in mind as I go ahead and see the next 7 days here, that rainfall forecast. You can see South Florida there. This is showing a little bit more precip toward that area at this point in time. But as we kind of look at things, you also see toward the Gulf Coast, maybe Weather Prediction Center from New Orleans to about Cedar Key. Things kind of get a little closer across the coast with a little bit higher rain totals, but I mean, anywhere in there could have a problem. I mean, you see stuff not far off of Tampa, even higher totals, but this wouldn't be, really, telling the whole story at this point, because it would be a lot higher than this if we got something. So it could be out of this period of the next 7 days anyway. There's so much uncertainty. Again, it's a tricky situation, but there's just enough indications in the modeling here this time of year, set up with that Central American gyre is cause for concern. And you want to go to that interactive radar there as well, cloudy.com/radar, to look at things we're not on for just shower storms. And we had a good bit of rain yesterday, and that early morning hour there around this dark, kind of intriguing to see. You can go there to look at stuff like that. You can also go and look at some different model outputs there, but be very careful if you're switching around too, because those are just, one run of things here that, may get sewn on that. So don't take it, as that's going to happen, because there's a lot of different variations in the model guidance here. So, even though we're going in alert mode, We're not trying to hype this up. It's just legitimate concern based on the model guidance that I've seen gathered all together that there's going to be some type of risk toward the Gulf Coast that looks to be more than likely significant. It's just, that didn't mean it's going to be our area. Don't take it like that, because the way we do this with, the potential for like a landfall and hurricane in the U.S., we turn it red anyway, regardless of where that is. I know. So that's kind of where I'm thinking we'll probably have in my assessment, almost more my opinion here at this point, it would be more likely than not that we'd have a landfall U.S. hurricane late next week. But it could be, in a number of different places. I mean, there's all sorts of different possibilities, but generally we don't end up having to turn the logo red and then, bumping out of alert coverage. I know this is a little bit earlier than we generally do it, but generally it's not something where we, end up having the situation just completely fall apart before it were to track toward, the coastline or something like that, and that the potential doesn't, arise, and the potential doesn't arrive. But again, we're going to keep paying attention. I know heavy rainfall risk, according to the Climate Prediction Center, you can see here a moderate risk of that from next Friday to next Sunday here. That includes areas from about Tampa and the Space Coast all the way, north of Atlanta. I mean, that would deal with some type of inland threat if this made landfall and had an inland rainfall potentially. See up into the Carolina area there, north of Charleston, all the way, the west of Mobile even, and just like past, the west of New Orleans, all the way to Lord Lafayette, Louisiana. So, I know don't cancel your plans here at this point. I know next Friday we're in Bradford County, scheduled to be the Bradford County Homecoming Parade. And right now, it's a situation we just want to monitor, wait and see type of approach would be the best one to take, but have alternative plans in mind in case things change quickly, because they very well can. We've seen it before. I mean, not saying this is going to happen. We did have, though, Michael develop on a Central American gyre, and honestly, just all of a sudden, early Sunday, the guidance just went crazy with it, and by Wednesday, it was a Cat 5 heading the coast. So, not exact timeline expected with that here, but my point being is things can change very drastically, and I just want folks to stay vigilant. I've been doing this enough now, over enough years to know we just can't, say, well, the models aren't consistent enough. Well, they're telling us something that we got to pay attention. They're not telling us the exact location, probably, of where this is going to hit, but they're just telling me that we got to pay attention. We got to remain vigilant. We got to have this hurricane kicked up to date here. We got to be very careful. Just be thinking about alternative plans here. Think about evacuation routes, even depending on where you're at here. Again, a lot of folks, you're gonna wonder why, like, well, the meteorologists, they hype stuff up and stuff doesn't happen. But the point is, other folks may not be so lucky. So, that's just how things are. Localized impacts sometimes. We've already had a lot of rain in our area, toward like Fernandina Beach lately and the like. So we do not need more rain here. And, that's cause for concern too. But we'll just have to see how this evolves, because this will be a Gulf Coast system. You can still get the rain on the East Coast, obviously. It can be very substantial depending on the ultimate track, and there's, again, a number of possibilities. So just stay tuned for the latest. Here's what I'm trying to say. But next Friday, next Sunday, it'd be the, most likely time frame of impact, toward our area. If that were to be the case, that's based on the Climate Prediction Center's interpretation of things here. So that's kind of what this is going off of, that potential here at this point in time. I know another thing, not going to really get into too many, forecasts for football games here this weekend. I know Bradford's off. The rain chance is pretty low around our area this weekend, which is a good story, to have. FSU's playing Saturday night. Honestly, it's just, crazy to see how great they were last year and how not great they are this year. But, rain shouldn't be much of a concern for that. So that's good. Gators are start with Mississippi. As we're looking, I'll kind of go back just for a second. You don't see a whole bunch of rain in the forecast overall there. Next 7 days. And then the Jaguars, they're going to be playing Monday night up at Buffalo. Let me just check that real quick, because I want to make sure, since I don't have it on the map here, just kind of give you a little bit of a verbal notice about what the weather could be for that when the Jags are not doing good either. It's looking like a very, very unfortunate, season of football ahead for a lot of the teams. My Bradford squad here in the county, which they're doing great, and they're off this week. Otherwise, it's just a, unfortunate, set of events that have made the teams not very good. I mean, between Florida State, and Jacksonville, I mean, you add up the wins and losses. Not looking great. They're combined 1-8 right now, if I'm doing my math right. I may not be because of Jacksonville. Maybe 1-7 because Jacksonville only played 2 games here so far. So FSU's lost 3, Gators have lost 2, Jaguars have lost 2. So yeah, 1-7. The only win was a Florida win over an FCS opponent. And but yeah, okay, up toward Buffalo Monday. Later on Monday, could be some rain, so we'll have to watch. Not seeing necessarily, thunderstorms being mentioned, but could have some rain there. That could be impactful up there. So that could be an issue up toward Orchard Park and the like. Monday night football for Jacksonville as they're taking on the Buffalo Bills. So let me pull up another map here. For that, I know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be on some Fox stations here on Sunday, taking on Denver, and the weather for that one. I'll give you an idea of that too. I know not all the Fox stations gonna be showing that one. I don't think Jacksonville's scheduled to show that, but Gainesville, Cali is. I know they're looking down there. There's a 20% chance of a thunderstorm after 2 o'clock, but nothing overwhelming. But obviously, any lightning would be, cause for a delay if it's within, a pretty close radius there. I know some folks, have different rules about that. In college, generally, it's about 8 miles or so, though. But let's go ahead and say so. Here's the map. That's Western New York. I know, luckily not in December. There could be snow bands coming off, the lake here. But we'll zoom on in and you'll be able to see some of the different areas. I'm going to zoom in a little tighter. You see Buffalo, you see Lackawanna, and we'll zoom in even closer here. You see all the different spots. I mean, you see all these different communities here and the like, and Orchard Park's a little ways away from the main city, but that's where the game will be there Monday night. That's where they play. And weather for that one right now, again, looks to be a little bit iffy. So, again, that's something that's worth noting for sure. That's definitely worth noting here for sure as we're looking at that. So, again, it's kind of giving you an idea of everything. I do want to go back to the tropical thread again now. And you have a high wind risk here from the Climate Prediction Center. Never showed you a graphic like this. I know we hadn't showed you heavy rainfall risk type graphics before, I don't think, up until Tuesday night. Well, now I'm showing this to you for the first time, and this is from the Climate Prediction Center saying the pattern would favor, just obviously potentially from a tropical system. It favors somewhere within this zone of, a corridor of wind problems. It's very broad brush right now. It's kind of the point. This is more, experimental, some of these type of graphics even at this point. But you see from around New Orleans there, from around Lake Pontchartrain all the way, through southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, southern Georgia, and all Florida and the Keys. Not just the peninsula, but the Keys as well. There's a risk here for a high wind. Most areas won't get the high wind here from a tropical system. The impacts will be localized. But between next Friday and next Sunday, we could have some issues here. So we just got to pay attention. That's why we're in alert mode. Again, a lot of folks in this are not going to get it that bad, more than likely. Other areas, it could be a big problem. So we don't know. We don't know here. If you're watching, I know that's not exactly the takeaway you want to hear. I mean, one way or the other, you want me to just say it's not going to be an issue or something like that, but I can't right now. We just don't know what could happen here at this point. There's a lot of uncertainty one way or the other. We're just not sure what's going to happen here, but we know there's a potential for problems. So we're going ahead and going into alert mode here as we look at things. You just got to be kind of getting out ahead of it. I know we had, by the way, this type of stuff isn't going to necessarily, talk about pop-up storms or anything here, or, convection, in just the general sense like what we had on Wednesday. But we had some warnings around Wednesday, some severe thunderstorm warnings that I touch on that real quick. This, isn't necessarily touching on something, like how renegade some of that stuff was, but you kind of get the idea here. This is for more organized concern from the tropics later next week, between next Friday the 27th and Sunday the 29th. So, that's the timeline, that's the area. Right now, if I was saying a hurricane was gonna hit, which I'm not seeing that, I'm seeing a tropical cyclone, though, would be more likely in that area. It would probably hit between around New Orleans and, through the Keys there. So, again, that's kind of the storyline. Somewhere in there, is where something could hit. We don't know how strong it'll be. We don't know how big it'll be. It hadn't even developed yet. So, a lot of uncertainty here. As we're looking right now, uncertainty is the word of the night here, I guess you could say at this point, because we just aren't sure. Again, maybe a hurricane, maybe not a hurricane, but if we had something, that's where it'd probably be, somewhere in a corridor, a portion of that. But okay, so tropical climatology, you can see even to about October 10th, we still have a number of systems, just as we look over the years, that time of year, we've had a number of systems. So, gotta stay on guard here, stay alert. Covered area, we're always on top of things for the 62 counties, always on for all the tornado warning storms. I know on for Franklin County last week there, last Thursday. And then also just talking about real quick, I know just outside of area, going on for it because it was outside the area, but we did have a tornado warning Wednesday in Volusia County there, but wasn't in our area. So that was the good news there. But still, we're watching the stuff. We were already cutting if we needed to for St. John and Flagler and the like, but there wasn't enough concern to do that. Fog potential around. Make sure you slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination. As we're looking ahead here, as that Friday morning, you could have some issues. I know last Friday we had some issues around. That was, a cause for concern, and already seeing half-mile visibility toward Brunswick right now. I'm seeing here on my system, but just slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination. Make sure your vehicle is as visible as possible to other vehicles by using your low beam headlights here, and then leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle in front of you. So be very careful during that Friday morning commute. Hopefully, if you're having to get up early Friday, you're watching this as you're getting ready versus watching it live in the overnight, hours, the late night hours. But as we go ahead and see here, that plan forecast now the next 7 days, you can see here, we're watching the Gulf of Mexico for a potential for a tropical cyclone that poses a Florida threat possibly. So gotta pay attention. But you see rain chances 20% through next Tuesday. That might be a little high, but we've seen some stuff that really is even going under, honestly, some of them radar products weren't even showing some of that moisture early on yesterday. But, model guidance, sometimes might not pick up some of this stuff. It's warm enough still to get potential showers or quick pop-up storms. So that's why we have 20% next 5 days. Then we go up to 30% next Wednesday and 40% next Thursday. And you see the temperatures there, about what you expect for this time of year in terms of those lows, those highs, just a tad bit warmer in general. So that's something to see there. Again, you have to be careful. We can't take those rain chances away. Even if we don't have like a pattern with a storm in play like we could have later next week, still got to kind of keep them around in this pattern. So that's kind of the storyline there right now. Again, I'm watching the tropics here very, very carefully. Just trying to pay attention here, exactly what's going on. You can kind of see here what's happening. Trying to keep you safe and informed. Here as the situation does progress. Again, here's a look at all the different platforms: Facebook, Casey Clyde WX, Clyde Weather, Twitter /X at Clyde Casey, YouTube at Clyde Weather, Twitch Clyde Weather, and clydeweather.com. Again, just trying to give you the latest on everything that's happening. trying to be here for you as it is needed. And right now, our next scheduled update's late Tuesday of next week. I know as we're kind of looking, we did have some nasty storms in Oklahoma, even turning deadly there with some wind damage. Tragically, as we were looking, it was a little bit west of Tulsa there, but that was a storyline on a national level. Not expecting it to break in for anything nationally or locally here, in terms of like warnings between now and next Tuesday night. However, if we really get a lot of confidence about the tropics and we see a danger really presenting itself, especially a local danger, then we may be on before next Tuesday, especially if that timeline gets, maybe pushed up a bit. So we're going to be here for you guys as it is warranted, if it is warranted here in the Weather Center. So just keep it tuned to Cloud Weather. I will keep you up to date. For now, have a great night. Stay safe out there. And I'll be back here next Tuesday night, another late night update. Unless, again, we need to pop back in earlier. I mean, there's always a chance things could escalate. We have to do, updates more like once every day or more than that, depending on how things develop in the tropics. Just really, could be, a big deal or maybe not a big deal. But we're in alert mode, so we're ready, we're on guard to protect you, your friends, and your family.